The transport ship Vindication shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, its hull scarred by micrometeorite impacts and radiation burns. On the bridge, Captain Lysander Vex watched the view screen with calculating eyes as Kepler for to be materialized. Before them a blue-green marble that the Galactic Federation had deemed promising. In their colonization briefs, what they hadn't mentioned was that it was also a death world. Atmospheric analysis confirms Federation reports were optimistic, muttered his navigator. Petra Grimm, her cybernetic whirring as it processed the data streams. Oxygen levels fluctuate wildly, gravity's 1.3 standard, and the electromagnetic storms. She paused, her expression darkening. They're going to play hell with our equipment. Vex nodded, unsurprised. 3 years ago, he'd been Admiral Lysander Vex of the Terran Colonial Fleet, architect of humanity's expansion into the Centauri cluster. Then came the incident at Proxima. Station his refusal to execute civilian evacuees that the Federation had deemed security risks. His court-martial had been swift, his exile absolute. The Federation had been clear. Take your most loyal crew and disappear into the Outer Rim, or face execution for treason. Now, as he watched the storm-racked planet below, Vex wondered if execution might have been kinder. "Sir," called out Grimm, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's Commander Kestra Darrow." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member knew that name Darrow had been exiled 6 months before Vex. Accused of conducting illegal bioweapons research, the Federation had sent her here to die, just as they'd sent all of them. Put her through. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a figure that bore little resemblance to the pristine Federation officer they remembered. Darrow's once regulation haircut had grown wild, braided with what looked like bone fragments. Ritual scars covered her arms, and her eyes held a feral gleam that made Vex's tactical instincts scream warnings. Well, Darrow's voice carried through the calm, rough from months of breathing alien air. If it isn't the Federation's favorite martyr, come to join the party. Lysander, status report. Commander, Vex replied, falling back on military protocol. Darrow's laugh was sharp as broken glass. Status? We're not just surviving down here, we're thriving. This world wants to kill everything that sets foot on it. But that's exactly what makes it perfect. The creatures here, Vex there. Magnificent. Evolution cranked up to 11. I've learned to work with them. Symbiosis, mutual benefit. They get fed, we get protection. The Federation thought they were sending us to our deaths, but they gave us something better, an army. The transmission cut to external feeds, and Vex felt his blood chill. Massive creatures moved through the settlement behind Darrow, things that defied classification. Some walked on legs like tree trunks, their hide thick enough to stop plasma bolts. Others moved with serpentine grace, their movements suggesting intelligence far beyond mere animal cunning. And riding among them, directing them with hand signals and low vocalizations, were humans. But these weren't the broken exiles the Federation had dumped here. They moved with purpose, with deadly coordination. You see, Lysander, Darrow continued, the Federation made a mistake. They assumed exile meant defeat. They forgot that humans don't just adapt, we dominate. And now, with our new allies, we're ready to remind them of that lesson. Vex studied the feeds, his strategic mind already analyzing formations, counting potential combatants, assessing threat levels. What he saw both thrilled and terrified him. These weren't desperate survivors, they were something new, something the Federation had inadvertently created through their own cruelty. What exactly are you proposing, Commander? Darrow's smile revealed teeth filed to points. Another adaptation. That made Vex's skin crawl. I'm proposing we stop running. The Federation dumped us here expecting us to disappear quietly into history. Instead, we've become something they never anticipated. It's time they learned what happens when you try to break the human spirit. The implications crashed over Vex like a tidal wave. Darrow wasn't talking about survival, she was talking about war. War against the most powerful political entity in known space, waged by exiles and the nightmare creatures of a death world. You're insane, he whispered. Maybe, Darrow replied, but I'm also right. The question is, are you still the Admiral who stood up for what was right at Proxima Station? Or are you just another broken exile waiting to die quietly? The challenge hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility and threat. Around the bridge, Vex's crew waited for his decision, their faces reflecting the same mix of hope and terror he felt churning in his own chest. Outside the viewports, Kepler to be turned in its eternal dance, its storms of predators and impossible. Beauty waiting to either kill them or make them stronger than they'd ever imagined possible. The landing was rougher than expected. Atmospheric turbulence caught the Vindication shuttle during descent, slamming the crew against their restraints, as Petra fought to keep them airborne. Through the reinforced viewports, Vex caught glimpses of the surface endless expanses of crystalline formations that caught and reflected the system's binary suns, creating a landscape that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. Touchdown. In 30 seconds, Petra called out, her knuckles white on the controls. And sir, we've got company. The proximity sensors lit up like a Christmas tree. Movement signatures surrounded their landing zone large, fast, and closing quickly. Vex felt his pulse quicken as he checked his sidearm. The familiar weight of the plasma pistol somehow inadequate against whatever was out there. The shuttle touched down with bone-jarring force. Emergency systems screaming warnings about hull stress and atmospheric pressure differentials. Before the engines had even cycled down, the external cameras showed them the welcoming committee. They were magnificent and terrible. The lead creature stood for meters tall at the shoulder, its body a fusion of reptilian power and insectoid precision. Chitinous armor plates covered vital areas while leaving joints free for fluid movement. 6 legs ending in razor-sharp talons supported its massive frame, and its elongated head featured compound eyes that tracked independently, clearly evolved to monitor multiple threats simultaneously. But what made Vex's tactical mind race wasn't the creature's alien physiology. It was the saddle on its back, and the human figure directing its movements with confident gestures. That's Torvin Krolik, breathed Grim, recognizing the figure through her optical enhancements. He was a xenobiologist before his exile. Federation charged him with unauthorized first contact protocols. Krolik had changed as dramatically as Darrow. His once soft academic frame had hardened into lean muscle, and bioluminescent tattoos covered his arms, clearly some form of communication system. With his mount, as they watched, he guided his creature in a complex pattern around the shuttle. The beast's movements precise as a military parade drill. Biosigns are spiking all around us, reported Martinez, their medic, his hands dancing over the sensor ray. Whatever's out there, there's a lot of it. Vex made his decision. Combat deployment. Full environmental suits. Maximum alertness. We're not taking chances. The shuttle's ramp lowered with a hydraulic hiss, and Vex's 20-person squad deployed in textbook formation. The moment they stepped on Kepler for 4 to B's surface, everything changed. The gravity hit them like a physical blow, 1.3 times Earth's standard, making every movement feel sluggish and clumsy. The air itself seemed to writhe with microorganisms that their suit filters worked overtime to screen out, and the sound of low, thrumming vibration that seemed to come from the planet itself felt more than heard. Welcome to paradise, called Krolik, his mount settling into a crouch that still left him 3 meters above ground level. Hope you brought your appetites. The local cuisine is aggressive. As if summoned by his words, the crystalline formations around them began to move. What Vex had taken for mineral deposits were actually camouflaged creatures, their bodies perfectly mimicking the prismatic structures of their environment. They flowed like liquid mercury, reforming into hunting configurations as they surrounded the human squad. Contact left, shouted Sergeant Valdez, her rifle tracking a creature that seemed to be made of living glass. Multiple contacts, all vectors. The first shots rang out as plasma bolts struck crystalline hide, sending rainbow fractures through the creature's bodies, but failing to penetrate. The beings absorbed the energy, their forms brightening as they converted the weapon's power into their own bioluminescent displays. Conventional weapons ineffective, Martinez called out, switching to kinetic rounds. The solid projectiles shattered against the creature's shells like hail against diamond. Vex felt the familiar cold focus of combat settle over him as his squad's formation began to waver. Under pressure from all sides, these were mindless beasts. They moved with coordinated intelligence, cutting off retreat routes and forcing the humans into an ever-tightening circle. Stand down your weapons, Krolik called out, his voice carrying clearly over the chaos. They're testing you, not trying to kill you yet. Testing us? Vex snarled, watching his soldiers' ammunition counters tick toward 0. Symbiosis requires trust on both sides. They need to know you're worthy partners, not just another prey species. Krolik leaned forward in his saddle, and his mount issued a complex series of harmonics that seemed to resonate through the planet's crust. The crystalline hunters froze. their forms shifting as they processed whatever message had been conveyed. Then, slowly, they began to withdraw, not retreating, but taking up observation positions around the perimeter. How? Vex demanded, his scientific curiosity warring with his military paranoia. Krolik smiled, and Vex noticed that his teeth had been replaced with the same crystalline material as the creatures around them. 6 months of making every mistake you can imagine, lost 3 toes to fingers, and nearly got dissolved by acid spores before I figured out their communication protocols. But once you understand that they're not animals, they're a collective intelligence testing potential symbiotic partners, everything changes. He gestured to his mount, which lowered its head to nuzzle his shoulder with surprising gentleness. Meet Vorthik. She's been alive for 3 centuries, fought in 17 territorial wars, and chose me as her rider after I proved I could survive a week in the deep caverns. Without technology, you're talking about bonding with apex predators, Vex said, his strategic mind already spinning through the implications. I'm talking about evolution in real time, Krolik replied. The Federation thought they were dumping us on a hostile world. Instead, they gave us access to the most sophisticated biological weapons platform in known space. These creatures have been waiting for partners smart enough to complement their abilities. Around them, more shapes moved in the crystalline landscape, things with too many eyes, others with appendages that defied classification, and in the distance, something that might have been the size of a small starship. The question is, Krolik continued, are you ready to become something more than human? Because that's what it takes to survive here, and once you make that choice, there's no going back. The Federation scout ship Enforcer dropped out of hyperspace 3 days after Vex's arrival, its sleek hull bristling with enough firepower to sterilize a small moon. On the bridge, Admiral Cassius Thorne reviewed the intelligence reports with growing unease. What should have been a routine Exile monitoring mission had become something far more complex. Bioreadings are off the charts, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Yates. Whatever's happening down there, it's not standard human settlement patterns. The energy signatures, they're unlike anything in our databases. Thorne studied the orbital scans, his augmented reality display highlighting anomalies that made his enhanced neural implants pulse, with warnings, massive structures that hadn't been there 6 months ago, movement patterns suggesting organized military formations, and most disturbing of all, electromagnetic signatures that implied advanced biotechnology. Sir, Yates continued, we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's Admiral Vex. Former Admiral, Thorne corrected coldly, convicted. Traitor in exile. Put him through. The holographic display resolved into Vex's familiar features. But Thorne barely recognized the man he'd once served alongside. Vex's skin showed the modeled patterns of adaptive camouflage. His eyes held flecks of crystalline material that shifted with the light, and when he smiled, Thorne caught glimpses of teeth that belonged to no human genetic template. Cassius, Vex said, his voice carrying harmonics that made the bridge's acoustic dampener struggle to compensate. You're looking well. Death's duty agrees with you. Cut the pleasantries, Lysander. You know why I'm here. The Federation is offering full pardons to all exiles willing to relocate to designated colony worlds. Standard resettlement packages, medical treatment to reverse whatever modifications you've undergone. Vex's laugh contained undertones that triggered evolutionary fear responses in Thorne's crew. Modifications? You think this is some kind of disease? We've evolved, Cassius. In 6 months, we've achieved what natural selection usually takes millennia to accomplish. You've contaminated yourselves with alien genetic material. Federation xenobiology protocols classify such actions as potential genocide of your own species. Our species was dying, Vex replied, his enhanced eyes reflecting light like mirrors. Stagnant, soft, the Federation's peace has made us weak, but this world, it's shown us what we could become. The transmission shifted to external feeds, and Thorne felt his augmented heart skip beats. The exile settlement had grown into something that defied classification, part city, part organism, part fortress, crystalline spires twisted skyward, their surfaces pulsing with bioluminescent patterns, and moving among them, directing construction. With obvious intelligence, were creatures that belonged in xenobiological horror files. But it was the humans that truly disturbed him. They moved within human grace, their bodies showing adaptations that should have been impossible without decades of genetic engineering. Some displayed chitinous armor plating, Others had developed sensory organs that tracked his ship's movements despite being kilometers above the surface. They worked alongside their alien partners with coordination that suggested telepathic communication. "You're looking at the future of human evolution," Vex continued. "Symbiosis with intelligence that complement our own. We've gained their adaptive capabilities, their environmental resistance, their collective memory, and they've gained our innovation, our tactical thinking, our burning need to push beyond every limitation. You've gained temporary biological advantages at the cost of your humanity," Thorn countered. But even as he spoke, he wondered if he believed it. Have we? Or have we become more human than ever before when the Federation condemned us to die? What did we do? We adapted, we survived, we thrived, we turned our exile into evolution. That's the most human response imaginable. Thorn's tactical displays suddenly erupted with warnings. Energy signatures were spiking across the planet's surface, not technological, but biological. Massive forms were emerging from crystalline caves, their biosignatures indicating size and power levels that dwarfed anything in Federation databases. "What are you doing, Lysander?" "Demonstrating why your offer of resettlement is unnecessary. We're not refugees anymore, Cassius. We're not even exiles. We're the next step." The creatures rising from the planet's depths defied description. Some appeared to be living spacecraft, their organic hulls bristling with what sensors identified as biological weapons systems. Others resembled mobile mountains, their sheer mass sufficient to create gravitational anomalies, and riding them, directing them with gestures and harmonized vocalizations, were humans whose transformations had progressed far beyond what Vex displayed. "My God," whispered Yates, his hands trembling as he processed the tactical implications. "Sir, they're launching, multiple contacts, ascending on intercept trajectories, shields up, weapons hot," Thorn ordered, his training overriding his shock. "All hands to battle stations." But as the Enforcer's defensive systems came online, Thorn realized they were facing something unprecedented. These weren't ships in any traditional sense. They were living beings capable of surviving in vacuum. Their bodies adapted for space combat through billions of years of evolution on worlds where the line between atmosphere and void blurred. "Stand down your weapons, Cassius." Vex's voice carried new authority, the kind that came from commanding forces beyond conventional military understanding. "We're not your enemies, but we're no longer your subjects either. The Federation created us through cruelty and abandonment. Now you get to live with the consequences." The first of the bioships reached the Enforcer's altitude, its massive form dwarfing the Federation vessel. Through the bridge viewports, Thorn could see organs that pulsed with contained energy, weapon systems that had evolved rather than been manufactured, and riding in a symbiotic chamber within the creature's head, a human figure whose transformation had progressed beyond easy recognition. "What do you want?" Thorn asked, his voice barely steady. "Recognition," Vex replied. "The Federation will acknowledge our sovereignty over this system. You'll update your records to show Kepler for to be as independent human territory, and you'll leave us alone to continue our evolution. And if we refuse?" Vex's smile revealed teeth that could probably bite through battle armor. "Then you'll learn why the Federation was right to fear what humans might become. While we stop limiting ourselves to purely human solutions, the bioships took positions around the Enforcer, their living weapons trained on critical systems. In the distance, more creatures were rising from the planet's surface, and entire ecosystem weaponized. Through symbiotic partnership with exiled human ingenuity, Thorn stared at the displays showing power readings that shouldn't exist, biological capabilities that defied physics as he understood it, and felt the weight of a decision that would reshape humanity's future pressing down on him. Like the gravity of a collapsing star, Admiral Thorn's finger hovered over the fire control authorization as his ship's AI calculated targeting solutions. For the bioships surrounding them, the Enforcer's weapons could sterilize the planet's surface, but the creatures now flanking his vessel at point-blank range could tear his ship apart. Before the bombardment sequence completed, "Sir," Yates whispered, his voice tight with barely controlled panic, "they're not just surrounding us, they're studying us. Their sensor sweeps are mapping our entire ship." Through the bridge's reinforced viewports, Thorn could see into the transparent sections of the nearest bioship's skull cavity. The human figure riding within had changed beyond easy recognition. Additional limbs had sprouted from its torso, each ending in manipulator appendages that interfaced directly with the creature's nervous system. But the eyes that met his through layers of organic armor and vacuum were still recognizably human, still filled with intelligence and terrible purpose. Lysander, Thorn said, opening a direct channel, "You know I can't return to Federation space with reports of human-alien hybridization. The purity protocols would demand immediate sterilization of this entire system." "Then no return," Vex replied, his transformed features visible through the bioship's communication membrane. "Join us, Cassius. Bring your crew. We've learned to share consciousness with beings that have survived extinction events. We've gained access to genetic memories spanning geological ages. Do you know what it's like to remember the formation of solar systems? I know what it's like to follow orders and protect human interests." Thorn shot back, but his conviction wavered as he watched the impossible grace with which the bioships maneuvered around his vessel. "Human interests? The Federation exiled us to die because we prioritized actual human lives over political convenience. They created this situation through their own short-sightedness. Now they get to live with the consequences." That's when the tactical display lit up with new contacts of Federation battle group dropping out of hyperspace. At the system's edge, 12 heavy cruisers for dreadnoughts and a planetary bombardment carrier. Enough firepower to crack a world's crust. "You call for reinforcements," Vex observed, his voice carrying disappointment rather than anger. "Even after seeing what we've become, you chose escalation over evolution." "I activated an automatic beacon when we detected the biological anomalies," Thorn admitted. "Standard first contact protocols for potential xenobiological threats." Xenobiological threats. Vex's laugh carried harmonics that made the bridge's structural elements resonate ominously. "Is that what we are now? Threats to be eliminated rather than humans to be understood?" The bioships around the Enforcer began to change, their forms shifting as internal organs reconfigured for combat. Weapon systems that had been dormant suddenly blazed with bioluminescent targeting displays. And from the planet's surface, more creatures were rising, things so large that their emergence created visible atmospheric disturbances. "Stand down your vessels, Admiral Vex," came a new transmission from the approaching battle group. "This is Fleet Admiral Korath. You are in violation of 17 Federation statutes regarding genetic contamination, unauthorized terraforming, and unlawful possession of biological weapons. Surrender immediately or face destruction." Thorn recognized Korath's voice, the man who had orchestrated the Exile protocols, the architect of the Federation's policy of abandoning problematic citizens on remote worlds. If Korath was here personally, the Federation had decided that the Exile experiment had gone too far. "Well, Cassius," Vex said, his transformed features hardening with resolve, "it appears your superiors have made the choice for both of us. They've decided we're too dangerous to exist. Lysander, there's still time to what? Surrender and be vivisected in Federation laboratories? To watch them dissect our symbiotic partners to understand how they work, before burning this world sterile?" Vex's bioship pulsed with internal light as it communicated with its fellows. "No, we've evolved beyond the need for Federation approval." The first shots came from the approaching battlegroup long-range particle beams, intended to disable the bioships without damaging the Enforcer. The beams struck their targets and simply vanished, absorbed by organic holes that converted the energy into their own biological processes. "Impossible," breathed Yates. "Their energy conversion efficiency is beyond anything in our theoretical models." The bioship's response was immediate and devastating. They didn't fire weapons in any conventional sense. Instead, they expelled clouds of what sensors identified as programmed organisms, microscopic entities that swarmed toward the Federation vessels with obvious purpose. "Korath, those aren't weapons," Thorn called on an emergency channel. "They're using biological systems we don't understand. Standard countermeasures won't." His warning was cut short. As the first Federation cruiser began to change, the microorganisms had somehow penetrated its shields and hull, and now its metal structure was transforming, becoming something organic, something alive. The crew's screams echoed across communication channels as their ship became a chrysalis for something unprecedented. "They're not trying to destroy us," Thorn realized with growing horror. "They're trying to convert us." The converted cruiser turned its weapons on its former allies. But now those weapons fired living projectiles that sought out specific vulnerabilities in Federation shield systems. Where they struck, more conversions began, spreading through the battle group like a plague of evolution. This is what happens when you try to destroy something that has learned to transform death into life, Vex's voice carried across all frequencies simultaneously, broadcasted by the bioship's organic communication systems. You exiled us expecting us to die quietly. Instead, we become something that turns your weapons against you. 3 more Federation ships underwent rapid biological transformation, their crews either dying in the process or emerging changed beyond recognition. The remaining vessels began firing on their converted comrades, creating a 3-way battle that painted the void with weapon discharges and biological emanations. "Sir," Yates reported, his voice breaking, "the microorganisms are trying to penetrate our hull. Our shields are holding, but the energy drain is massive." Thorne watched his former colleague's fleet tear itself apart, watched as biological intelligence proved superior to conventional military technology, and felt the weight of command crushing down on him. He had 3 choices: join the transformed, fight a battle he couldn't win, or become something entirely different. "Lysander," he called out, "what guarantee do I have that my crew will survive the transformation?" "The same guarantee any evolution offers," Vex replied. "Adapt or die. But at least choose your death consciously rather than letting others choose it for you." Around them, the battle raged on, and Thorne realized that he was witnessing the end of human space as they had known it. The void between Kepler 4b and its primary star became a graveyard of metal and flesh. As the 3-way battle reached its crescendo, Federation ships fought their converted sisters while bioships wove between them like living nightmares. Their organic weapons systems adapting in real time to counter every defensive measure. Fleet Admiral Koreth's flagship Retribution held position at the battle group center, its massive frame bristling with enough firepower to level continents. Around it, the surviving Federation vessels formed a defensive sphere, their overlapping shield matrices creating a sanctuary of familiar technology. In an increasingly alien battle space, status report, Koreth demanded, his augmented features flickering with the neural interfaces that connected him directly to his ship's tactical systems. "We've lost 9 vessels to biological conversion," reported his tactical officer, Commander Wraith. "The converted ships are using our own weapon signatures against us, but their targeting systems seem to anticipate our evasive maneuvers. It's like they're reading our minds." Through the bridge's tactical hologram, Koreth watched the converted cruiser vengeance spiral through a formation that should have been impossible for any ship its size. What had once been metal and ceramics now pulsed with organic life, its hull breathing like skin, its weapon ports opening and closing like mouths. The crew was still alive, sensors confirmed human biosigns, but their neural patterns had changed. Beyond recognition, they're sharing consciousness with the conversion organisms. Koreth realized, they're not just using our weapons, they're using our knowledge, our training, our tactical experience. A bioship the size of a small moon rose from the planet's gravity well, its surface covered in what appeared to be launching bays for smaller organisms. As it breached the battle zone, thousands of fighter-sized creatures poured from its depths, each one carrying a human rider whose body had adapted for vacuum survival. "Sir," Wraith's voice cracked with strain, "those aren't vehicles, they're living beings, and the humans riding them are breathing vacuum." The fighter swarm struck the Federation formation like a living storm. Individual creatures matched the maneuverability of the Federation's best interceptors, while their human riders provided tactical intelligence and weapon targeting. But these weren't the humans who had been exiled months earlier. Evolution had compressed centuries of adaptation into mere weeks. Captain Valdez, formerly of Vex's crew, rode a creature that resembled a cross between a manta ray and a fighter craft. Her body had developed gills that filtered oxygen from the cosmic medium. Her bones had hollowed to survive pressure changes, and her eyes had adapted to perceive across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. She guided her mount through a formation of Federation interceptors, her plasma lance grown rather than manufactured, carving through whole plates like tissue paper. "Target the riders," Koreth ordered. "They're still human enough to be vulnerable to conventional weapons." The Federation's point defense system swiveled to track the biofighters, filling space with intersecting beams of coherent energy. Some found their marks. Valdez watched 3 of her squadron mates vaporized in brilliant flashes, their mounts screaming harmonies that carried across vacuum through quantum resonance. But for every biofighter destroyed, more emerged from the depths of the massive bioship, and the creatures were learning, their organic systems adapting to counter the Federation's weapons in real time. What had started as effective point defense became increasingly futile, as the biofighters developed energy-absorbing skin and began using the Federation's own weapon discharges to power their attacks. They're turning our weapons into their fuel source, Wraith reported, his voice hollow with disbelief. Every shot we fire makes them stronger. The converted Federation vessels chose that moment to strike. The transformed Vengeance opened fire, with weapons that had once been familiar plasma cannons, but now launched living projectiles, organic torpedoes that burrowed through shield matrices and converted whatever they touched. Where they struck, Federation ships began to change, their crews faced with the choice of immediate death or biological transformation. Korith, came Vex's voice across all channels, now harmonizing with dozens of other transformed humans. This ends when you choose to let it end. Every second you continue fighting, more of your people die or transform. How many crews are you willing to sacrifice to maintain Federation purity protocols? On the Retribution's bridge, Korith watched his tactical display as another of his ships underwent conversion. The process was horrifyingly rapid. Metal became organic tissue. Weapons systems evolved into biological equivalents, and crew members either died in the transformation or emerged as something beyond human recognition. Sir, Wraith whispered, the conversion rate is accelerating. Whatever they're using, it's becoming more efficient. At this rate, we'll lose the entire battle group within the hour. But Korith's attention was fixed on a smaller signature moving through the chaos. The Enforcer, with Admiral Thorn apparently attempting to navigate between the warring factions. As he watched, biofighters began surrounding Thorn's ship, not attacking, but escorting it toward the planet's surface. Thorn, Korith called on a secure channel, report your status. I'm negotiating, came Thorn's strained reply. Cassius, what we're seeing here isn't just biological weapon deployment, it's speciation in real time. They're not just using alien biology, they're becoming something entirely new. You're compromised. Korith replied coldly, return to formation immediately or be classified as hostile. Look around you, Thorn shot back. Half your fleet has been converted, the other half is dying. And you're still talking about classifications and protocols. These people were exiled for refusing to follow orders that violated basic human decency. Maybe it's time to consider that they were right. The transmission cut off as biofighters guided the Enforcer toward the planet's atmosphere. Korith watched it go, knowing that he had just lost another ship not to enemy fire, but to the terrible possibility that the exiles might have found something better than the Federation's vision of human purity. All remaining vessels, he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of inevitable decision, prepare for planetary bombardment. If we can't contain this contamination, we'll sterilize it. But as his ships oriented their main batteries toward Kepler for 2B's surface, the bioships began to move with new purpose. The massive moon-sized organism that had been launching fighters suddenly reconfigured itself, its surface reshaping into what sensors identified as the largest biological weapon system ever recorded. The battle was about to enter its final, most devastating phase. The space above Kepler for to be transformed into hell itself as Fleet Admiral Korith's remaining 7 ships achieved bombardment formation. Their planetary crackers charged with enough antimatter to split continents, while the massive bioship reconfigured its entire body into what could only be described as a living world killer. Sir, Commander Wraith reported, his voice tight with barely controlled terror. The thing is generating an energy signature equivalent to a small star. Whatever it's preparing to do, it's beyond our tactical models. Through the bridge's viewports, Korith could see the bioship's transformation reaching completion. What had been launching bays now pulsed with concentrated stellar matter, somehow contained within organic tissue. The creature wasn't just preparing to defend the planet, it was preparing to become a weapon, capable of destroying entire systems. All ships, synchronized bombardment in 30 seconds, Korith ordered. Target the planetary surface installations and the primary bioship. But as his words echoed across the battle group's communication channels, space around them began to sing. The sound came from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously, a harmony that resonated through quantum fields and made reality itself vibrate. The converted Federation ships had formed a complex formation around the planet, their organic hull serving as resonance chambers for something unprecedented. What are they doing? Wraith demanded, his instruments struggling to process readings that defied physics. On the surface of Kepler for 4B, visible through the swirling atmospheric storms, massive crystalline formations were rising from the planet's crust. Each one stood kilometers tall, their surfaces catching and amplifying the bioship's quantum resonance until the entire world began to glow with contained energy. They're turning the planet into a weapon, Korath realized with growing horror. The whole world is one integrated biological system. Admiral Vex's voice cut through the quantum harmony, now speaking with the combined consciousness of thousands of transformed humans. And they're symbiotic partners. This is what you created when you abandoned us here, Korath. You thought exile meant death. Instead, you gave us the opportunity to become something that transcends individual human limitations. The planetary resonance reached critical frequency, and space itself began to warp around Kepler-442b. The Federation ships found their targeting systems scrambled, their weapons unable to lock onto targets that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Fire! Korath screamed, knowing that hesitation meant annihilation. 7 planetary crackers discharged their antimatter payloads toward the world below, enough destructive force to vaporize any conventional target. But as the missiles approached Kepler-442b's atmosphere, the quantum resonance reached its crescendo. The antimatter warhead simply vanished, not destroyed, not deflected, converted into pure energy that the planet's biological matrix absorbed and redirected. The crystalline formations on the surface blazed with captured stellar fire, and when they released that energy skyward, it came as a lance of coherent force that no human technology could withstand. The beam struck the Retribution amidships, and Korath watched in fascination as his flagship began to change. The energy didn't destroy, it transformed, converting military-grade ceramics into living tissue, turning weapon systems into organic equivalents, rewriting the fundamental structure of matter itself. Abandoned ship, he ordered, but his crew was already changing. Commander Ray's skin developed a crystalline sheen as his neural implants merged with organic computing systems that grew from the ship's transformed bulkheads. His screams of terror gradually shifted to harmonics of wonder as his consciousness expanded beyond individual human limitations. "Don't fight it, Cassius," came a new voice, Thorn, speaking from the planet's surface where his ship had completed its own transformation. "The fear only lasts until you realize what you're becoming." Korath drew his sidearm, determined to die human rather than live as something else. But as he raised the weapon to his temple, he caught sight of his reflection in the bridge's viewports. His augmented features were already changing, Federation technology merging with organic systems that had appeared from nowhere. "We're not destroying your humanity." Vex's collective voice surrounded him, speaking through the ship's transformed communication systems. "We're completing it. Humans were never meant to remain static. We've always been a species that transforms our environment to suit our needs. Now we've learned to transform ourselves." The last conscious thought Korath had as an individual human was the realization that the exiles had been right. All along, the Federation's pursuit of genetic purity had been evolution's dead end. When he opened his eyes, Cassius Korath was still himself, but he was also infinitely more. His consciousness touched the minds of every transformed human in the system, shared their memories, their knowledge, their collective understanding of what they had become. The fear and anger that had driven his military career seemed like distant echoes compared to the vast symphony of shared experience. Through quantum link perception, he could see the remaining Federation ships as their crews faced the same choice he had: transformation or death. Most chose transformation, their individual selves becoming part of something greater while retaining their essential humanity. But on the bridge of the cruiser Purity, Captain Yost made a different choice. "I will not be contaminated," she broadcast on all frequencies as she activated her ship's self-destruct sequence. Federation genetic purity must be preserved. The explosion was massive, a fusion fireball that briefly outshone the system's binary stars. But even as the purity vaporized itself, the bioships moved to contain the blast, their organic hulls absorbing the destructive energy and converting it into new growth, new life, new possibilities. Such waste, Vex observed sadly, his collective consciousness mourning the lives lost to ideological rigidity. She could have become something beautiful. 3 more Federation ships chose self-destructs rather than transformation, their crews dying in nuclear fire rather than accepting evolutionary change. But the majority chose adaptation, their vessels becoming part of the growing bio fleet that surrounded Kepler-442b like a living constellation. As the battle's echoes faded, Admiral Thorn found himself standing in what had once been his ship's bridge, but was now an organic command center that responded to his thoughts as naturally as breathing. Around him, His transformed crew worked at stations that grew from the ship's living hull, their enhanced senses monitoring space-time itself for potential threats. "So what happens now?" he asked, his voice carrying harmonics that conveyed complex emotional states impossible in purely human speech. "Now we build," Vex replied, his bioship settling into orbit around their transformed world. "The Federation will send more fleets. They'll declare as xenobiological threats and try to contain us. But they don't understand that we've moved beyond their ability to threaten." Through their shared consciousness, the transformed humans could feel their world's potential unlimited energy, from the crystalline formations, biological technology that improved itself, and most importantly, a template for human evolution that could spread to any world that welcomed it. "They exiled us expecting us to disappear," Korath added, his consciousness now fully integrated with the collective while maintaining his individual perspective. "Instead, we become the seed of humanity's next evolutionary leap." In the depths of Kepler-4 to Beast transformed oceans, new bioships were already growing, preparing for the day when humanity would need to choose between stagnation and transcendence. The exile had ended, but the real journey was just beginning. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler-4 for 2b, the galaxy had learned to fear a new name, the Symbiotic Collective. What had begun as a handful of exiled humans on a Deathworld had evolved into a civilization that challenged every assumption about the limits of biological and technological development. Admiral Thorne, though, he still preferred the title despite his transformation, stood in the command center of the bioship Transcendence, watching through quantum link sensors as another Federation patrol fled the Kepler system's outer boundaries. The ship beneath his feet pulsed with life, its organic hull breathing in the vacuum of space, while specialized organs processed cosmic radiation into usable energy. "That's the 7th patrol this month," reported Commander Yates, her crystalline features shifting with bioluminescent patterns that conveyed amusement. "They're getting bolder, but not bold enough to actually engage," Thorne nodded, his enhanced perception tracking the Federation vessels as they jumped to hyperspace. Through the collective consciousness that now linked all transformed humans, he could feel the fear and fascination that their existence inspired throughout known space. The Federation's propaganda networks painted them as monsters, but refugees from oppressive worlds spoke of them as saviors. "Sir," called out Dr. Krolik from his position at the Biological Analysis Station, "we're receiving another delegation request. This one's from the Centauri colonies. That's the 15th this month," Thorne mused. "What are they offering?" "Medical assistance for a plague that's been devastating their outer settlements. Apparently, conventional treatments aren't working, and they've heard about our biological adaptation capabilities." Through the shared consciousness, Thorne felt the collective considered the request. The plague in question was actually a Federation bioweapon, deployed to suppress colonial independence movements. Helping the Centaurians would mean direct confrontation with Federation interests. "Approved," came the collective decision, spoken through Vex's transformed features on the communication display. "We'll send 3 bioships and a full medical team. Time to remind the galaxy that evolution serves life, not death." The decision rippled through the quantum network that connected every transformed human across the system. On the planet's surface, Kestra Darrow felt the collective's resolve and smiled with teeth that could bite through diamond. Her latest creations, bioships, capable of faster-than-light travel through organic space-folding organs, would reach Centauri in days rather than weeks. "The Federation won't be pleased," Thorne observed. "The Federation exiled us for refusing to commit atrocities," Vex replied, his bioship rising from the planet's atmosphere with fluid grace. "Now they get to watch us save the people they were trying to kill." Poetic justice at its finest. But even as they planned their humanitarian mission, long-range sensors detected something that made the collective consciousness pause with concern. A massive Federation fleet was assembling at Wolf 359, not the scattered patrol groups they'd been dealing with, but a full extermination force, hundreds of ships, including the experimental dreadnought Purifier, designed specifically for sterilizing worlds contaminated by xenobiological threats. "They're not coming to negotiate this time," Korath observed from his position commanding the orbital defense network. His consciousness had adapted perfectly to multi-dimensional tactical analysis, making him the collective's primary military strategist. "Let them come." Darrow's voice carried harmonics of anticipation rather than fear. 6 months ago, We were desperate exiles clinging to survival on a hostile world. Now we're something they can't understand, can't predict, and can't defeat with conventional weapons. She was right, and everyone in the collective knew it. The bioships orbiting Kepler 440b weren't just vessels, they were living weapons systems. With capabilities that improved themselves, the planet itself had become a fortress organism. Its crystalline formations capable of generating energy fields that could sterilize entire star systems, and most importantly, every human in the collective retained their individual creativity while sharing in the biological wisdom of creatures that had survived extinction events. They're bringing everything they have, Thorne noted, studying the tactical projections. This won't be a skirmish, it'll be total war. Then we'll give them total war, Vex replied, his transformed features showing determination that transcended human limitations, but not the kind they expect. We'll show them what happens when human ingenuity merges with evolutionary perfection. As if summoned by his words, the newest generation of bioships began rising from Kepler 442b's transformed oceans. These weren't converted Federation vessels or modified Deathworld creatures. They were entirely new life forms, designed through the collective consciousness's combined biological knowledge, and grown in the planet's organic shipyards. Each one was unique, adapted for specific combat roles while sharing the quantum communication network that made them extensions of human will. Some resembled living asteroids capable of generating gravitational anomalies. Others looked like crystalline dragons that could phase between dimensions, and the largest, still growing in the planet, as deep as trenches, would be capable of consuming stars and converting their energy into new life. Sir, Yates reported, her enhanced senses detecting quantum fluctuations at the system's edge. We're getting preliminary readings of the Federation fleet. They're massive, at least 300 capital ships, plus support vessels, and they're broadcasting on all frequencies. The transmission that filled the command center carried Admiral Morrison's voice, the architect of the Federation's final solution for dealing with genetic contamination. His face appeared on the organic display, scarred from combat, but still carrying the cold determination that had made him the Federation's most feared military commander. Attention! Entities occupying the Kepler 440 system, Morrison's voice carried across space with mechanical precision. You are in violation of 17 galactic treaties regarding genetic contamination and unauthorized terraforming. Surrender immediately for processing, or this entire system will be sterilized. The collective consciousness considered the ultimatum for precisely 3 seconds before responding with a harmony of laughter that made space itself resonate. Admiral Morrison, Vex replied, speaking for all of them. You're about to learn the difference between exile and evolution. The Federation created us through cruelty and abandonment. Now you get to meet your children. The bioships around Kepler 440b began to move with predatory grace, taking positions that would have been impossible for conventional vessels. And in the depths of space, other things stirred, creatures that the transformed humans had awakened. In the system's outer regions, ancient beings that had been waiting eons for partners worthy of their capabilities. They want to sterilize us for becoming something better than human, Thorne observed, feeling the collective's shared anticipation building toward critical mass. Instead, they're about to witness the next step in human evolution, the final battle. For humanity's future was about to begin, and this time, the exiles would not be running. They would be teaching the galaxy what it meant to underestimate the human capacity for transformation. As Morrison's fleet approached the outer system, the transformed humans of Kepler 440b prepared to show the galaxy that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from defeating your enemies, but from becoming something they could never have imagined possible. The exile had ended, the evolution had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.